I know that it is 5 o'clock on a Thursday, and when I first heard I had the speaking slot, I told them I could probably manage to personally buy drinks for everyone who showed up. So welcome to the Graveyard Shift. I'm Melanie Hohertz. I am Online Communications Lead at Cargill, and I am thrilled to be with you at Ignite. Before I get started, I actually really want to know something about you. Would you please raise your hand if you are one of our Yammer network managers? So who owns a social collaboration network? Doesn't matter if it's Yammer actually or any collaboration network. We have a fair number of you here today. That's great. Now can I see hands for anyone who is just starting with social or wondering if you should bother? We have a really good mix here today. Welcome. The good news is that whatever stage we are at, every single person in this room, including me, is interested in getting business value from collaboration. And if you are still early with social, I hope I can offer you some helpful basics to get that value today. And here is a challenge straight out of the gate for all those hands that came up for people who are already managing networks. We need to go back to those basics and up our game. And here's why. Collaboration strategies have a shelf life problem. I mean, sure, you can still make some bread with that, but it's probably time to go shop. And I will be the first to own it. My strategy is stale. And with poor timing for this presentation, I am halfway through rewriting it right now. Here's why I think my network needs the basics just as much as any other network on day one. My company is changing. Its opportunities, its structure, its leaders, its campaigns, its workforce, its technology. My network is changing. Its size, its use case, its champions, its support needs. Yammer is changing. Its features, where it integrates, where it competes. My metrics tools are changing. How I measure, and what I can do with what I learn. So if you raised your hand earlier because you are just getting involved with social, here's mine. Me too, even though I've been in the game for 3 years. Because I think we all need to be asking, what will make social really work in our companies right now? How do we engage our companies and drive the business value? And before we get into all those opinions, who am I? Because I'm very opinionated, but what kind of opinions are you getting? And I think there are a few things that you ought to know. First, I am not technical. I am a business owner of IT. I'm not about the nuts and bolts that make my platform run. I'm about the people and process parts that make it work. I have 20 years of experience in change and communication and education, including 3 years of hands-on experience running a social network. That is not long in years, but that is a lot of mileage. Second, my company, Cargill, is big and very complicated. We have more than 152,000 people in 67 countries and a mind-blowing range of markets and products. We're also really sensible and conservative and value-driven, which is why we're now turning 150 years old. After almost 3 years of standalone network operations, because we are still mostly a SharePoint 2007 shop, and my network is integrated in no way with our intranet, the network has grown to about 25,000 members from at least 64 countries. Membership is rising approximately 33% year over year, and we're quickly approaching 250,000 messages. And last but not least, you should probably know that you're listening to someone who is both a cynic and a fanatic. Okay? I love collaboration. I think it can change people and teams and companies and drive incredible business value. But it is not always puppies and rainbows, okay? Real-world collaboration is a massive culture and process change. Launching the network and then supporting the community takes a lot of work day after day. Wake up, system, clicking. I might need some tech support to advance, but the puppies are cute. I might need some tech support because I'm not moving forward here. Let's try going back. Okay, let's see if touchscreen will work. No? All right. Down arrow? Sweet. You know what? This is a bug slide. And this is how I spend a lot of my time. Okay? You might already know from all the Microsoft presentations that Microsoft has an Office 365 network, okay? And out there, I co-admin the Yammer Bugs group with the fabulous Amy Dolzine sitting right there, okay? This is our group avatar. And we bring the candor, the complaints, and the crowdsourcing, okay? And it is actually a great example of real-world collaboration. So now that we're past the puppies and the bugs, and we are back to the value, we will kick things off with some examples of the value of collaboration. It's why people like me do what we do. And after that, we'll talk about what people like me do. And then, fingers crossed, we will finish up on time and go out and have a pint. Okay. First, here is an example of the value of knowledge at scale. One person, Charlie, posts one sentence and one file in our network. And with that simple action, he puts a best practice to work in 13 locations in 7 countries on 4 continents. A few of you in the room might actually recognize this example. I showed it last year at SharePoint 2014. But here's something actually very interesting. A year has gone by, right? This has been discoverable on my network for 12 more months. Plus, Cargill has better metrics now. With our third-party partner, tyGraph, I can dig deeper into the activity around this conversation and this file. And here's what I found. I get to add these. These are 16 completely new locations, including 2 more countries, working with this file. Social can deliver value from knowledge at scale and over time. Now, here's a second example, and it's got a little bit more going on, so I'm going to break it down for you. This time, my colleague Donald needs ideas. He wrote, "We've seen an increase in slips, trips, and falls, and are looking for best practices to address this." He gives a few details about the facility and the slippery floor, and he welcomes suggestions. He didn't mention anyone by name. He's not addressing anyone specifically. Right from the start, this is different from an email conversation. But replies started coming right away from safety leaders all over my company, and also other people, including from a research chef. Okay? And the likes on this thread included his business unit leader and a safety manager 8,200 miles away in Kandla, India. Within 2 days, Donald had half a dozen ideas. Everything from slip-resistant boot treads to rubber mats, to spraying the floor with sterile grit, to using a special grinder disc to rough up the floor. Now, he chose that last idea. It was cheap, it was easy, it was effective. And so 4 days after Donald posted his question, he posted before and after pictures of the fixed floor. 4 days, start to finish, done. Or sort of done, because that knowledge is searchable and shareable. More than 3 months later, Donald posted to the thread again to share it with a colleague from Chuzhou, China. He wrote, "Here's the conversation regarding the floor project you asked about. I hope that you have a successful improvement." I think we can all agree that this conversation and others like it have business value. How much in dollars? I have no idea. After 3 years, I have no idea. But I know this is the way we want to work. Agile, ignoring silos, using what we collectively know. Now, you've seen 2 examples of how social can leverage knowledge and drive real-world action. I see valuable conversations like these every single day in my network, ones that support agile processes, innovation, sales. But the challenge in social is that the value I see watching over the entire community is not what everyone else in my company sees. Many of my colleagues look at collaboration and they see a shiny object distracting us from our actual business work, right? They don't see what's in it for them or for our business. So here's the deal. If you're launching, your challenge is not implementing a technical tool. And if you're struggling to grow your network or to get more value from it, your challenge is not putting a Yammer feed on your intranet. The challenge is to persuade a critical mass of people in your company that social is not shiny. Our challenge is culture. If we want value from social, we have to build a collaborative culture, person by person and experience by experience. Not just technology and process, but mindset and daily behavior. And we all know how easy it is to change our daily behavior, right? Because nobody here smokes. We're all in great financial shape, and man, we got bodies like gods, okay? So people need to understand and believe that social is a better way to get their work done, and that social supports our company goals. This is why we have to keep tying collaboration to business needs. So on that note, we're zooming through, we're getting into the basics of managing a network, whether it's new or growing, and basics are not always easy. In my opinion, these are the network basics, starting at the foundation, tying collaboration to value with the business case. Then measurement, which includes how, what, and so what. Supporting and growing groups and the power users that make them work. And engaging busy leaders. Right now, I'm rewriting my strategy and I'm reviewing how I do all of these. And I think there are plenty of challenges in this stack for pretty much everybody. So let's talk about the business case. Yours can be a 1-page vision statement or a full analysis of opportunities, whatever works for your company culture. But I'm going back to my case with 3 questions. What are the company goals right now, and how will social support them? What will people do differently because the network exists? And what will success look like? I need to be clear on these answers to move my leaders and everybody else. Okay, now I'm about to drown you in text, but I totally couldn't help it because my company does not share its full written business case. But I wanted to share the outline that we launched with in case you need to write your own. And please remember that you can download this entire deck and every last one of my talking points, except for any jokes I make up on the fly, okay? So Cargill bought social in 2012 to make money, save money, and create business opportunity. Our people would share and leverage knowledge, discover experts and existing resources, and work in virtual and global groups. Success would take a lot of forms. We'd see agile adoption of operational improvements, quicker customer responses, more cross-selling, broad-based innovation, problem-solving, and we would identify and avoid rework. And if you were in a panel session this morning, the social journey, the customer perspective, you heard tons of amazing examples of business value from Kroger and Hershey and Gannett. Seriously, if you are putting together a business case, do not miss that session. So yeah, with a few years hindsight, since this was back in 2012, I still think all of this is really good stuff. Steal it. But I've also been thinking about my company's challenges right now. And as I update this case, I think social can uniquely deliver on this: engaging people with the business. Last month, Forbes magazine reported on a large-scale study by the Hay Group on the top challenges ahead for global companies. The top 5 were collaboration, agility, transparency, innovation, and productivity. I'll post that article in the Yammer chat for this session. That list of challenges might hit some people as buzzwords, especially if you're the type that really focuses on the money. So just for you, here's a quote. Firms rated highest for engaging and enabling their staff achieve 4.5 times the revenue growth of their lowest scoring counterparts. There's the money. I really like having the culture challenge and the value reflected right in your business case for social. And here's how I see this goal playing out right now in my network. Yammer will help people engage with our goals, our customers, our products, our leaders, our results, our milestones, and each other. And success is going to take a lot of forms, like more participation in our leadership town halls, dialogue around our business results, discussion of key company commitments, activity around targeted company campaigns, like our campaigns around zero fatalities or managing our travel expenses or valuing diversity. And one of the tactics that I'm developing right now in support of this strategy is a product headquarters group, because my company is huge and diverse, but social can engage lots of people across the company in sharing information about our markets and our products all around the world. So I'm still refining it, but as part of my case, Yammer will engage people with the business. Besides, good things happen when we make it easier and more fun to engage with the business. This spike in my network's activity was largely driven by tying Yammer into our 2014 recognition campaign that happened last November. This is a story, and I also think it's a best practice, and I wrote it up for you, so bear with me for a few minutes here, okay? Cargill has a very long history of very prestigious internal awards for leadership and service. And for years, all these celebrations have been held right at our company headquarters, even though we're honoring people around the world. And the awards committee was looking for ways to try to globalize and localize all of these celebrations and activity and recognition. And so, because I'm on the recognition committee, as a little nod to me, we added a recognition drive in Yammer. And we modeled it on the Ice Bucket Challenge, without the ice. Anyone could recognize a colleague and challenge them to recognize 2 more people. Videos and photos were encouraged, and our friends in corporate giving attached an incentive. For every recognition action in Yammer, Cargill would donate a meal for a child in need. The awards team decided that the drive would last for a week. But then, as one of my leaders charmingly wrote in an email, the inmates took over the asylum. Surprise, we had an experience a lot like the Ice Bucket Challenge. Our network lit up like a pinball machine. I'd read one post and 40 more would fly by the time I was done reading it. And this did not last for an hour, this lasted for a week. At the end of the week, I sent a frantic plea to the committee to rewrite all the communications announcing the end of the campaign. Don't tell everybody this is done. Just let it roll, okay? And they let it roll for the rest of November. It was 3 weeks of glorious, heartwarming, back-breaking chaos, okay? Nobody follows directions, ever, ever. Posts and pictures and videos all over our network. And in the end, thanks to some amazing efforts by tyGraph, we confidently identified more than 25,550 recognition actions in our network that month. That month. It was enough that corporate giving rewarded us with the full incentive and donated 40,000 meals to school children in Zambia in partnership with the World Food Program. So I like to share stuff. If you've ever been in one of my sessions before, I like to share stuff like this thing, which is a painfully detailed recap of all the lessons from the recognition campaign and what was going on in Cargill that helped make it work. I also threw in communications samples. I'll post it to the session Yammer feed and also in the Office 365 network. It's yours. You can have it. Because I think this experience, because I think this experience can and should be repeated by me, by you, by everybody. And when I think about plugging Yammer into company campaigns, especially campaigns that our leaders have already been called on to support, this just seems like an endless stream of opportunities to target my leaders, to drive engagement, and to support company goals. So the headlines, if you're going to do this, are these. Target an active campaign. Offer strategic partnership. Lower the bar to participate. Connection to Microsoft IT VPN was terminated. Do you want to reconnect? No. Yammer bugs. Okay. Posting in Yammer can be a very simple ask. And you can train the campaign champions to help you out. And by that tactic, you can actually gain a whole crop of new power users, and we'll talk about that. Meanwhile, you want to grab the leaders, get them up and running on the tool, and keep them engaged. And you're going to need to manage people's expectations about what success looks like. Remember, you're going to get this whole deck, okay? Plus, one last warning, you need to be ready if this stuff rolls. I completely lost last November to this campaign, guys. It's a blur. I don't remember a single day of it. I'm not kidding. But it's a good problem to have. Another campaign seeing success in my network is our company's 150th anniversary. This campaign has a lot of tactics, but this one, Proud WW, is completely hogging the spotlight. What you see here is my chief financial officer posing next to a life-size cutout of WW Cargill, one of my company's founders. This is only one of more than 550 pictures with WW posted to Yammer so far since the kickoff in February. And we learned our lesson from the recognition campaign. We are letting it roll. WW is going to be featured and tracked all year. So far, DubDub, as we call him, has been posted by people from more than 30 Cargill businesses and 12 functions. And he's shown up in more than 34 countries and on every continent except Antarctica. We're working on that. And DubDub has done Tai Chi in India, he has celebrated the New Year in Thailand, and he's taken part in cocoa farmer training in the Côte d'Ivoire. I love how a campaign like this makes it easy and fun for people to engage with our 150th anniversary. I want you to consider this question carefully for a second. Can you picture this kind of energy in an email or a newsletter or in an article on your intranet? Seriously? But what's really cool are all the comments that I'm reading with all these pictures. People are talking about what they're proud to show this old family member, our founder, and why they're proud to be part of my company. And between recognition and Proud WW, I am very proud to say that Cargill's network is the home of strategic selfies. Okay? Our experience has shown that we can tap this common behavior to drive awareness and action. So now we're going to be moving on to measurement. How many of you attended this session? Raise your hand if you attended this session. Okay, so if you missed it, you need to go back and find it later, because in social, metrics absolutely matter. But why they matter can be different. based on your network's maturity, your goals, and your resources. If you have a young network, or if you've got limited time, or you have really basic tools, you're probably focusing on basic metrics, like membership and network engagement. These days, I think of these measures as survival metrics, okay? Here's why. As a community manager, I'm used to pointing to strong or growing numbers here to justify my network's existence, or the time I'm spending on it, or the time and attention I want leaders to spend on it, or why I want people to use my network instead of any of dozens of competing products. More members means more potential connections in a network, and higher engagement level means that basically you've got greater likelihood of adoption and valuable conversations. So if you don't like the term survival metrics, fine, call them success metrics. I agree with you that these are absolutely important. But will you please agree with me that they are not directly actionable? I focused on these measures for a very long time because of a very simple and extremely inconvenient truth. The out-of-the-box metrics for Yammer have been seriously disappointing. Until recently, when they started being broken. Thankfully, these days we have more options for metrics. First, there's a free solution called Tossalog that you can look up on the Office 365 network. It is a do-it-yourself option that taps Power BI, and it is a thoroughly decent tool. Just be ready to do your own break fix because it is not officially supported. Second, you can partner with a third party for metrics, and we like tyGraph for a few reasons. With them, I get more data than I could get in Tossalog, including likes, which are extremely important in any social system, and file views and file downloads, which are critical for tracking campaigns like the ones I just showed you. They also have a measure that's called responded but not mentioned. Okay? It's the percent of conversations in my network that drew replies from people who were never mentioned in the post. Remember that floors example? That would be one of those, okay? So these are conversations and connections that would be unlikely to ever happen in email or chat because traditional channels are always addressed, right? You always know who you're sending those to. So this is a measure that I would share with a network sponsor, right up with membership and engagement, to help them understand the value you're getting by layering a social network over existing email systems. And I'm looking forward to what might be coming in this space as well. I recently saw a demo from an external social media monitoring provider, one of those companies that competes in monitoring and data mining Twitter, right? So this is big game stuff. And they are turning around and adapting their platforms for internal company networks. I was seriously impressed by what I saw. And so with some budget and the right partnership, I think pretty soon we network managers can see network-wide content and thematic analysis in Yammer and imagine what that's going to enable us to do. So metrics are maturing fast, and I'm really excited to think where this might go, especially as Yammer integrates with the Office Graph and other applications like Delve. If you're in communications, imagine what kind of data you could deliver to someone in your C-suite about the impact of a company campaign if you could track signals in Yammer and in Delve and in other areas of the stack. Okay, once we figure out how we are going to measure our networks, the real questions become what measures we're going to focus on, and then what we're going to do about it. So now I can get lists of the top people who are posting and liking and sharing content in my network. And I can reach out to them to find out if there are use cases to capture and share. I can ask if they want power user training. I can ask if we need to arrange a training for their entire team. I can thank them for the value they're offering in the network, and I can tell them to keep it up. I can even promote them in network or company communications if the ROI looks right on that activity. And I can take a lot of the same steps for groups. What are the top performing groups using Yammer for, and what's driving their success? What can I learn and share with all of my group managers? And I can easily identify inactive groups that should be archived or deleted. And now that I can get good data on lurker metrics, like likes and file views, I have fresh reason to reach out to my key cohorts, like all of our global communicators across Cargill, and let them know that I can measure the consumption of their content in my network. Seriously, if any of you know any communicators, and you tell them that you can measure the consumption of the stuff that they spend all their time creating, I'm serious. Have a camera ready and take a picture of their face. I want an endless stream of pictures like this. Okay, all right. And for groups that are holding events in Yammer, like Yam Jams, I can offer better measures of participation. Plus, I am really excited about something that tyGraph is building for me right now. This is my latest pony, okay? Soon, I'm going to be able to get engagement data for custom lists of users, okay? That's going to be awesome. Here, I'll tell you why. I can use that to measure engagement from all the top leaders in my company. Just upload a list, and I'll be able to tell my most engaged users and get them to compete with one another, okay? I'll be able to check engagement on a custom list for all my power users so that I can reward and recognize all my top ones and drive everybody in that list to even higher levels of engagement. I can turn that on a real key strategic group, and I can see how every single member of that group is engaging from the top all the way to the bottom and arm a group leader with that. That is why that is awesome. Okay, another measure that I get that I love is called ThreadWatch. I can view the top conversations in my network by the number of messages and the number of participants. That's the blue and orange bars, okay? And I can look either across my entire network or specific to just one group. I can also specify the date range, so I can find the top conversations just within a brief window for a campaign or an event. Or I can do regular sweeps, okay, and just do regular measurements on my network and keep finding those top conversations. Each conversation has a thread ID so that I can jump right to it and I can take a closer look. Like I can look at the likes or the file views or the file downloads. And here's the so what for all of this. You guys remember that Charlie Vandepol example with all those documents spreading all out over the world? This means that those are going to be delivered to my doorstep. I'm not going to have to stumble across them in my network by chance. Instead, I'm going to be able to find them on the daily or the weekly or whenever I feel like it. And I'll have all those value examples to communicate to my leaders in my network. Okay, we are actually halfway. And believe it or not, it gets faster from here. So let's keep going with groups and power users. Groups are the Lego blocks of your Yammer network. And groups, I'm talking Yammer groups, okay? And behind any solid group is one or more people like Chantel Rice. She created a group that's the poster child for collaborative value with no help from me whatsoever. Her group is a retail team that visits agricultural stores all over the country every day. So when she decided to launch a Yammer group, she did two interesting things. First, she had them install the Yammer mobile apps on their phones right first thing directly in her training. Everybody get out your phones and install the mobile app right now. Then, she sent them out on field trips to commercial retail stores with an assignment. Find and post fresh retail display ideas in the group and cheer each other on, go. It was immediate, it was fun, it was effective. And last month, that group had a 70% response rate to posts. That's unreal. And in the last 6 months, they've racked up more than 2,200 image views. Staging areas, displays, packaging, every expert always available. They're trading best practices, they're tracking competitors, they're recognizing each other. It is a perfect use case. And so now it's up to me to dig into this success and support it and share it with other similar situations throughout my company. And it's also time for me to refresh my power user program because I got to find more people like this, okay? I have about 90 power users right now, but I need to check up on their engagement and rethink how I'm recognizing the value they're offering. And this is another piece that I'm going to create, and if you're out in the Office 365 network, yes, I'm going to share that when I'm done too. Okay, now we are going to spend just a few minutes on group management. The single most successful thing that I have done in running my network, the number one thing, is creating a group for all of our group creators. Okay? So if you create a group, you end up in a group of group creators. It's cute and it's meta, but it is completely valuable. I can take care of all of my group creators in one place. I can answer questions, I can share resources, I can push notices. So I invite every single group creator in my network to this group, and it is absolutely easy to do this using Yammer keyword monitoring. We just track the word created. That word appears in an automated Yammer message when people create a group. So ding, I get an email about it. And then I send them the invitation. Done, easy. I keep a lot of stuff in this group, but there are two pieces that I think are essential if everything else disappeared tomorrow. The first piece is a checklist for people who just created a group. That's this thing. Most of the time, group creation is an impulse. Lots of people click that button to create a group, because anybody can create a group in Yammer. There is no provisioning process. People click the button, and then they have no clue what to do next. Okay, they have no clue. So this checklist gives them a step-by-step directions on how to set up that group and put it to work. This is one seriously ugly, overstuffed sofa of a checklist. But it is useful, and it's been borrowed by a ton of networks over the last 2 years. And I have freshened it up just for you, and I'm going to post an editable version, and I invite you to edit my work. This is the second piece that balances out the checklist. It is a formal strategy for creating Yammer groups, because a smaller percentage of group creators are strategists. I've updated this, and I will post that for you so you can have it. And all my files are always editable. If you want me to love you forever, by the way, edit it, improve it, and then post your version. I'm serious, okay? There are two other practices that have worked well for managing groups. First, when people create groups that seem targeted at large teams or business units, I'll help them by inviting all the people from an email distribution list up into the group. This is called a bulk upload, and it's a simple administrative process in Yammer. Now, before I'll do it, I'll ask them to complete the group success checklist. And I like to think that that gives groups a fairly strong start. Now, that said, something that you should know is that most Yammer groups fail to take off. And if a group has seen little or no activity in 6 months, my company calls it a cricket group. There's nothing in there but the sound of crickets. And in my network, we delete cricket groups. We make lots of jokes about smashing crickets, okay? First, we post warning announcements in that group for group creators to let people know that it's time for another call. And group owners can reply, and they can ask for a pass if they're going to try to reboot engagement. If, no, don't kill my group. Okay, we'll take you off the list. But most of them don't. This deletion process is manual, unless you have some nice person to write code for you that interacts with Yammer's API. And believe me, it is not glamorous. But I do it because I think these culls help to make sure that our network members can easily find and join thriving groups. And now we're moving on to leader engagement, and this is a big deal. Leaders model behavior. They legitimize collaboration, and they engage people at all levels. This thread includes 3 different levels of leaders, including our vice chairman, posting to recognize a team with good safety results. Imagine how they reacted. And you've already seen a selfie from my CEO and my chief financial officer posting with a cardboard cutout of my company founder. How do we get leader engagement like this? It helps a lot that Cargill has had great success enabling some of our key leadership strategy meetings in Yammer. And we have managed to get 98% of our top 250 leaders to join our network. And that is a story that I will be happy to share if we end up with extra time today, or if you simply ask while I'm holding a beer. But for ongoing engagement, in addition to events and campaigns, there are 3 key drivers to involving leaders in your network. The first is encouraging engagement from mobile apps and email posting. Tell your leaders to post right to the main all-company group, okay? Targeting be damned. Seriously, just have them post straight into all-company. Then it's your job to share it and tag it and make hay with it. For busy leaders, engagement has got to be easy. The second driver is leveraging leaders' travel schedules. For this, you need good relationships with the administrative assistants. And all my admin allies remind our leaders to post to Yammer whenever they travel. And the third and most important driver at Cargill is our culture of Yam Jams. So let's talk about Yam Jams. And I promise I'll explain the bicycle in a minute here. Okay. First, if Yam Jam is a new term for you, it is a set period of time, often an hour, but we've held them for up to a week, of real-time dialogue in Yammer. And Yam Jams usually involve people who aren't always accessible. So like one of your senior leadership, or maybe a customer, all right? Yam Jams are one of the easiest ways to engage your leaders because it offers them a manageable time investment. It's minimal prep. One short meeting to brief them, 1 hour of their time, couple follow-up emails, done. You can sell a leader on the Yam Jam as an add-on to one of the big company town halls, because when was the last time one of those got through all the Q&A, all right? Plus, you can tell the leader that they're going to get questions from people who would never, never, never ask them questions straight up in the company forum. You're not going to ask questions in person, but you'll type a question in Yammer. Now, Cargill has really built a Yam Jam culture. 45% of our extended corporate leadership team has Yam Jam experience, and I'm aiming for half pretty soon. And I have Yam Jams booked after the town hall meetings for my CEO through the end of calendar 2016. Now, if you've never held a Yam Jam before, it can be nerve-wracking, a little like you felt the first time you were about to try to ride a bicycle. You remember that? All right? No matter how many people zoom by you on a bike, or if you've ever visited Amsterdam or something, you have to do it yourself to learn how. And you can feel a little bit wobbly first. But once you get it, there's this different mindset, like, hey, what's the fuss about? Let's go. And so in the interest of time, okay, if you haven't done a Yam Jam yet, I have something that might help. It is 7 solid pages of epic overthinking and tips on how to prepare for and run a Yam Jam. And if that seems long, that's about how many pages it would take to write out how to ride a bicycle. Take it from me that Yam Jams are a must. They are a game changer. And Cargill has done all the worrying for you and everyone in your org. So grab this, read it once, take a breath, ride the bike, delete the file, okay? For all of our earliest Yam Jams, to get the culture, as soon as we were finished with the Yam Jam, I would sit down and I would write a 1-page summary of all the highlights of the Yam Jam. The number of questions answered, here's a screen grab of the longest thread, here's a report on the global participation, isn't it amazing? You heard from someone in Bangladesh. Leaders love feedback. And then, with complete intent in mind, I emailed that summary directly to the leader. Because guess what happens when you email that kind of thing to a leader? They send it around to all the other leaders and they say, top that, okay? Because leaders are competitive, all right? So to get your first leader to jam, target a town hall, follow the tips, give them feedback, praise them, and then ask them who's next. So I have already offered a lot of opinions and tactics today, and I wanted to take a moment to say your mileage will vary. All of our companies especially everyone here today, are wrestling with change. And our cultures and our resources are often very different. My advice to any network owner or soon-to-be network owner is this: run your own race. Don't benchmark your social metrics against my company's metrics, okay? Just as in running, unless your goal is the podium, the race is against yourself, your company's expectations, and your results on your journey. And one more note on basics, because there are plenty that I didn't cover today. If you are truly on your way to launching social, please consider checking out the first 40 minutes of the presentation that I gave at SharePoint 2014. Not the whole 90 minutes, just the first 40 minutes, I promise, okay? That offers detail about our launch, including a soft launch or pilot strategy, working with risk managers, setting network policy, the whole 9 yards. It's online and it's free to access, and I will post the direct link so that you can find it easily. And anytime, because I am on the Office 365 network, you can ask me questions about that content as well as today's. It's all good. And we are there, the last lap, and it's a short one. I wanted to start finishing up today by acknowledging the challenge in front of all of us, because no matter where our companies are on the path to new tools that are increasingly based in the cloud, we don't know what's ahead, and the roadmap keeps changing on us. Sure, that's exciting. I mean, yay for fail-forward development, and I actually mean that. But right now, it can be very confusing for our user base, and it is hell on us change managers. It is hard to help people know what's in it for them, when sometimes I don't even know what's in it today. It's going to take good faith and hard work from everyone to manage this level and this pace of change. And I hope that over the coming year, Microsoft, I'm looking at all my Microsoft friends in the audience here, I hope Microsoft will keep working to build more transparency and dialogue and trust with us, their champions in their client companies, because these tools are worth nothing if they are not used. I don't mean to sound harsh, but in this new world, the changes our companies and our people experience are no longer optional. We can't easily delay an upgrade. We can't easily turn off a feature. Change management gets harder, but it's suddenly more important than ever. I think these are the ingredients to the secret sauce for value with many of the pieces in Office 365: change management, channel ownership, and community management. And I could talk about these for another hour, but I'm not planning to today. I'm just going to quote my colleague, Darren Hawley, who said, "Someone has to exist with passion for outcomes, deep knowledge of the product, and strong relationships with the user community and the technology supplier, because the tools can't just run, they have to work." Okay, we are lightening up because, believe it or not, we're at the finish line and we will have plenty of time for questions. I told you earlier that your mileage will vary, to run your own race at your own pace. Our companies have their own cultures and timelines and definitions of success. But this doesn't mean you should run alone. Out on Microsoft's Office 365 network, you can find a lot of contacts like me. Please raise your hand if you're on the Office 365 network. Look at the hands, okay? Look at the hands. And you can find resources like Cargill's Network Etiquette Guide with the No Cat Videos since 2012 logo, okay? I'm posting this too. Editable form, you can have the cat, all right? Search and ask and answer. And before you know it, you're going to realize you've become part of a community. That is what happened to me. We are out there collaborating on how to drive collaboration and how to change the way we all work. And I really hope that everyone's going to join us in driving value for our people and our companies from social. And thank you for sticking with me today, for being here at 5 o'clock. We can take some questions, give away some t-shirts, and let's head out for a pint. Thank you. Yeah. Step right up to the microphones.
Hey, thanks. Great talk. How have you kept the internal spammers from taking over your Yammer network? We've got a good one. Our social networks are popular, but the people that seem most drawn to that are the comms people who want it as another way of getting out their message.
So, and just to make sure I understand the terms, and bear in mind you're talking to an internal communicator, they are the spammers?
Yes, right.
Okay,
So
all right.
they don't always coordinate their campaigns, and so they'll send it out via email, they'll tag everything,
Well, in its own way, I almost feel like you have an opportunity here if we turn this sideways. If you actually work with your communicators, and to be honest, I'm chasing my company communicators, many of whom don't feel that this is a mature enough technology to spend their time on. If you let communicators know that social is a space where if their messages do not offer immediate value to the audiences, they will not be seen or consumed. In other words, this is not a space where spam gets you anything other than wasting your time. If they're posting things in the all-company space, unless someone has chosen to follow them or the algorithm feels that this is a valuable message for the user, it's not going to push it into their home feed. They're not going to see it. Something that many new Yammer users don't recognize is everyone looking at the Yammer interface sees different messages there. Communicators are used to command and control push of messaging. It's why this leaves them feeling very nervous and skittish, and you have to kind of put one of those thunder vests on them you'd put on a dog in a lightning storm. You've got to tell them to calm down a little bit. Because the only way that they can push a message out inside this forum is to be a group admin and to push a group announcement. That will push to everyone's email. But how is that different from just sending out an email to them? So, I would love to talk with you a little more on the Office 365 network and come up with some targeted talking points to tell your communicators from a communicator, they've really got to up their game in this space because this is not command and control anymore. Delve and Yammer, they're changing the game.
Great, thanks.
How long did it take you to build your critical mass, or where you felt like you had critical mass?
Okay. This time last year, we had 18,000, which is why we had 33% growth year over year. An interesting tactic that I would tell you is it's a little bit like, I forget what the name of that Greek mythology person is who's constantly rolling the rock uphill and then it just slides back down again. Because the problem with having a really good metrics tool is I can tell you exactly how many people I've onboarded versus how many are actually in my network today, because we delete all of those terminated accounts. I've onboarded more than 90,000 people, but I have 25,000 members. So when do you get to critical mass? I'd say that's actually a feeling. You know it when you see a question that's sitting out in all company, and as a community manager, you're like, oh, who can I mention? I've got to find someone to answer that question. I've got to get value for that person. And then by the time you look back from the search tool, somebody answered them. That's critical mass. All right, so you're going to see that in the activity. Also, when the leaders stop asking you how big the network is, or when the leaders stop asking for that, when they stop asking for that level of members and engagement, you know you've reached critical mass. My CEO, you saw that picture where he's posting that selfie from Indonesia? He just does that stuff now. He just does it. That's critical mass.
Hi. Are you planning to change your rules now? Yammer has the possibility to get external people into the community?
Cargill is going to be taking the opt-out for the first half of Flexternal, which is, in other words, we are not going to allow our members to invite external people into conversations in our network. It is not because we are fundamentally opposed to this particular feature. It's because I'm a change manager, and there are many different stakeholders in my company that I need to explain this change to them and show them documentation and just gently unstick them from the ceiling and pull them down and tell them this is going to be the way that my network operates. That takes time. Even scheduling those meetings can take months. All right? We're not ready for this to suddenly go live in my network like this, which is why the opt-out matters. We are Not going to be, however, taking the second half of the opt-out, which is called the firewall. In other words, we are going to allow our network members to be invited into conversations in other companies' networks because we have confidence that the data export that they've created will give us as much insight as we need.
Most companies do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, here's something. I understand that the thinking around Flexternal is, hey, you can already do that in email. What's the big fuss? Do you guys know how many controls are around email? I mean, and not only that, but as soon as you start saying, hey, my Yammer tools like email, all of the technology governance people who have put those rules into email perk up their ears and go, wait a minute, your tool's acting like email? So this is something that's going to take some time, and we are going to let this feature mature, and we are going to have the necessary conversations, and I do think that we are going to opt in eventually.
Because Cargill also participates in joint ventures, or not?
Because Cargill participates in what?
In joint ventures?
Oh, yes, we have joint ventures. Here's something to know if you're a network manager, one of those basics that I covered in SharePoint 2014. If you're going to be launching a Yammer network, have a really good idea of your policy toward who can join that network, including contractors and joint ventures. That usually requires advanced discussions with your legal folks. Also, frontline workers who may be hourly and who therefore might need to use their own resources or post in their own time, which can be an issue. You know, so this is something where before we launched our network back in 2012, we discovered and whitelisted 90 different forms of the Cargill address. So just be prepared for that. These are the things that you learn when you have the experience.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Hi. Oh. Can you give me
yes.
some ideas to the size and makeup of your team and sort of like what they do as opposed to what you delegate out to the community people?
Okay. I belong to the digital communications team, which sits in marketing and brand. And as far as the people who are tagged directly to Yammer, you're looking at the team. But I have a robust cross-functional team of support, including my enterprise architecture partners and folks in technology governance and law who come to occasional meetings. But this is really something that runs very lean. There's me and my army of 90 power users.
Hello. We're about to go into pilot with our Yammer network, and I'm just curious to know how you initially started off, because I'm doing battle with our CIO at the moment as regards how many people we should turn on in the network to begin with. He wants to be more cautious, but you know, I'm kind of arguing with him at the moment. I just wondered how you started it off, sort of day one, week 2.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so are you Office 365 licensed?
Yeah,
okay,
we've got about 50,000 users.
Yeah.
We're about 25,000.
Just be aware that when you flip that toggle, everyone's going to be able to join. So just that, you won't be able to provision individually. And also that Yammer app that appears in the launcher, you can't turn that off at the tenant level. You can only turn that off at the individual level. So it's going to make us, I would advise a soft launch or a pilot launch to anyone. So I'm afraid to say I sort of agree with your CIO.
Yeah.
Because that is really a valuable way to choose a couple of target groups and teams who seem to really want collaboration, or who are the obvious people who would get business value from collaboration.
Yeah.
And then you can hand-hold them very targeted through those first months of operation. And we did that, and 1 out of 4 was our success rate.
Okay.
Even with all the care and attention, even with all that special love, 25% really, caught fire.
Okay.
And what happens if you take that kind of a pilot approach is that when you're ready to send out a big promotional message and invite everyone in, they're not walking into a ghost town.
Yes.
They walk into a system where there's already some established groups, hopefully some public groups
Yes.
where they can see. And even if they don't join them, they can get a feel for the culture out there, and they can sort of see how things are done.
Okay.
And so I would also say that one of the things that really helped us was when we decided to do our big launch, we kicked it off with a Yam Jam.
Yeah.
And we had our chief financial officer at the time, who had a personality as big as the room, basically just say, hey, you should join our first Yam Jam because you'll get to talk to Sergio Rial. And we just had incredible uptake on that first Yam Jam, and we've never looked back since.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right here. First off, thanks for all the materials that you're providing. I think that's going to be a huge help. Secondly, it seems like you can have an agenda when you are posting things on Yammer. It's clear. But what is it that you feel like principle-wise engages users to participate?
Well, I would tend to say that what engages users to participate is incredibly variable, actually. Okay. I've seen posts that literally I look at it and then I kind of, and then I look at it again and I look at it again. It's some technical diagram that I don't know what this thing is about. And it's got an energetic sort of conversation below it about boiler specs. All right? So the folks who are in our plant environments in particular, you know what? I actually can jump up the level. I can tell you that one of the ways to engage people is to identify interest groups that are spread out across geographic locations or across the company. So our plant managers and our people who do plant systems, they love this system, okay? Because they will literally post the most technical thing you can think of, and they're isolated in their plant, right? Instead, now they're in communication with the people who run all the other plants and run all those same systems all over the world. And we have had some really interesting characters in those particular spaces. I remember one wonderful series where one of the fellows in the plants literally just took his cell phone around the plant and captured pictures of exposed wiring or other things like that and titled his post, "That's your problem." And he was just posting this in Yammer everywhere. And my favorite post of all time to prove the business value of Yammer came from the plant space. It was someone who just posted, "We're about to push live this patch in blah, blah, blah plant today." And 15 minutes later, someone posts in all caps, "Do not push that patch live. It took our plant offline for 3 days." I took a screen cap of that, and I sent that right to the C-suite. And I said, "What is 3 days of plant operations worth to you?"
Wow. So you're saying there kind of needs to be like an implicit...
It is. People decide for themselves in a very individual way how to use this system. Another very odd kind of use that I've seen, I mean, my senior leaders at this point know how I want them to engage in Yammer, but they too find their own uses for the tool. I've got at least 2 groups I'm keeping an eye out there where Cargill is doing fresh site builds, right? We're doing greenfield development. And the only thing in these groups are pictures of new buildings and scaffolding and stuff like that. Okay, and I'm looking at this, and literally there's a post from my CIO saying, "Where are the pictures for this week?" And a new lot of pictures appear. And they're tracking site builds through pictures in Yammer. I find that fascinating. So I would say what you can do is you can watch for the uses people are putting to the tool, and I generally find that because people's names are attached to these posts, this is something where people know that this system is their reputation at the company. Let them have a photography group. Let them have a running group. Let the social be social. But otherwise, people talk about what they're interested in, and often it's the minutia of their work that they suddenly find they've got commonality with others all across the company.
Hey, Melanie. I know one of the key notions for Yammer is working out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us a sense of what your play into Yammer for Cargill has had an effect on email? Because I think a lot of us still are relying on corporate email. How do your users know when to use email and when to use your Yammer network?
Okay, I'm going to kind of disappoint you in this area because not only am I believe down to the depth and core of my being in Work Out Loud, and I suck at it. It's my entire digital communications group, every single week, every member of that group except me routinely pushes a post in Yammer talking about what they're working on, and I trickle in on Friday going, "Here's what I did." Okay? And my digital communications team is approximately 12 people, but we have 375 people who've joined that group because they're interested in our updates. That right there is the power of Work Out Loud. But as far as what dent it makes on our email, the reason I said that I'll disappoint you is because I actively encourage people to post to Yammer by email. I am not out to reduce our email. If that happens, it happens. I understand that email is not cost-free. I understand it is not beloved, but I am also not going to flip that lever. It is like oxygen at my company. And I was sort of waiting for Yammer and email to become much more integrated at this conference, but I'm going to have to be a little bit more patient. And I think Microsoft is committed to saying, hey, you choose which modality in the stack you want, and if that's email, well, as far as I'm concerned, I'm still going to let you get value and give value from collaboration if you are going to stay stuck in email. Do we have other questions? Yeah.
I work for local government. we have to keep our email spinning on disk for 5 years, and the local paper comes by and asks for all the emails related to something. Do you know of any case studies where a local government has implemented Yammer and they might had to deal with the Freedom of Information requests?
I believe my local municipality has implemented Yammer, but I would have to go for details. What I would tell you is that working with Cargill's Records and Information Management team, we have decided that conversations in our Yammer network are classified the same as most of our other email, and so we are not going to need to start rolling deletions of our network content for 6 years. And so I can still go back and read the original messages posted in the dawn of our network. What I would say for entities like government or for healthcare, others with very specialized requirements, this space is increasingly seeing third parties recognizing your need, so including vendors like Smarsh, who can make sure that they index your conversations for compliance and discovery. They used to be sort of cost prohibitive for us because they would only protect us at the full network level. But these days, they can target groups or even individuals operating in your network, and they can then archive those conversations appropriately. So you might want to check it out. This is not a need that is specific to you. Yeah. Hi.
Great actionable content, by the way. Thanks.
Thank you.
I have a question. A couple of the examples that you gave, I love the safety example. Our organization is also manufacturing, so we have stuff like that. And we're conservative, too. And I wonder, I can just imagine being reluctant to post, hey, I've got a safety problem. Is there something that you did to encourage comfort about posting things like that, or is it just a culture thing that your company's okay talking out loud?
You know what's really interesting, and I talked about this a little bit last year, is we have a culture which is incredibly conservative in person and a culture of extreme candor in Yammer, by which I mean this. Cargill is still aiming to have a 0 fatality year, and it is something that we take extremely seriously as a goal. That means that for any year you can think of, we've had at least 1 fatality, and those are talked about in Yammer. Now, we also have talk about serious injuries and other things like that happening in our network because we believe any incident like that, the more you analyze it, the more you talk about it, the more you bring it to the forefront of everyone's awareness, that is how you reduce risk. No one ever achieved a safer culture by not talking about safety. And that means making the most of every incident to make sure it never happens again. There was one time when I heard from one of our mid-level leaders that he had run into one of those posts on Yammer. And that content shouldn't be in there. And I wrote him my typical impassioned response about how no one ever got safer by not talking about things and slapped it off to him and then said, ooh, maybe I should have talked to my manager. But I never heard from him again, so, I think it all worked out. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, by the way, for the content. Really great. So I'm part of the crowd that is just starting on the social journey. Business cases for justifying the purchase of Yammer or these kinds of social tools is an ongoing conversation. I recognize the value of it, but in the beginning of your journey in 2012, what was the tipping point? How did you convince the leadership to actually invest in social?
Okay. One of the funny things is that we're one of the companies that actually paid for social. Now you guys who are licensing with O365, right? It's like you gift with purchase. It's like it's one of those extras you get at the makeup counter when you buy the lipstick. But something that happened to us is where's Steve Wynn? Steve's hunched over his phone here, but this is Steve Wynn, okay? And I'm going to go back a little bit, and I'm going to tell you that my network is actually Cargill's second run at Yammer. Okay, so what happened is Steve is he now works for Microsoft, but he is one of the original 2 Cargill employees, so he used to be a colleague, who founded a Yammer freemium network. And then it started to snowball in our organization. And so early on, he and his friends in the network were already busy surfacing examples of value, tagging them, and putting them all, I think, into one of the early versions of OneNote so that they could share them with stakeholders and say, hey, we need to officially bring this tool in Cargill. And they were successful to the extent that they actually got Cargill to move from freemium into premium and license the product. But after a year, there was a lot of talk back and forth about whether we really thought the file upload was protected enough. enough, we couldn't agree on contract terms, and no one owned the network. There was no one business owner. And so guess what? The whole thing got shut down. And that was when we had already learned there was enough business value to social that we went and put a request out and started looking at different social vendors, saying, well, okay, if we contract with one, who should we pick? And we end up picking Yammer again, which completely confused all of our employees, going, and I'm serious, do you know what kind of a challenge that is to adoption, where I tell people, yeah, participate in this network, it's great. They're like, you're just going to kill it again. You're just going to yank it. Why should I do this? The thing that might help convince an executive about business value of social, if they listen to sources like McKinsey's done a great deal of work attaching actual dollar figures to this kind of value. But I would simply argue, what are the priorities that your particular leader holds dear? Cargill goes ballistic over food safety, food security, and responsible supply chains. And all of those key values for my company require communication and information sharing and alignment down to frontline employees in 67 countries around the world. And how are you going to do that better? Through email? So find out what's near and dear to your leader's heart. You can talk dollars if you want to, and there are figures out there. But I say really find out what they're passionate about.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Oh my God, let's go get a beer.